everyone. Welcome to the Mental Moms Podcast. I'm Rhiannon.
And I'm Kat.
And today we're going to talk about how our childhood trauma affected us into adulthood. But first, we're going to start a new segment called Weekly Check-In, where me and Kat catch up with each other on our mental health and how life has been since the last recording, because me and Kat kind of don't really talk during the week. Surprisingly, we don't talk that much. I like a little bit, but we don't really know much about our life outside the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we'll message here and there, but I feel like we save most of the combos that we have for the podcast, and I feel like it could benefit it because it's like organic and natural, and we're like genuinely like catching up and having a convo. So I feel like it'd be a good segment to put it in the podcast. Just like we're gonna focus on a topic, but also just, hey, how are you? You know what I mean? Just like a genuine combo.
It's just Kat's idea too. How are you doing?
This week has been actually really crazy, and I feel like so much has happened. I don't want to like take too much time, but like my job has been like laying people off. My son has been sick, aka you hear the cough. I've been kind of like anxious, almost like I feel like this week I'm coming out of it, but I feel like I've been in like a funk. Like you start to look around your house and you're like, wow, I haven't done that in a while. I must have not been really struggling. Like I realized like every year, most of the time, I'm like November 1st, I'm like, I'm putting up my Christmas tree, I'm doing this. And it's like Thanksgiving. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't even taken down Halloween stuff. Like I've really been going through it.
It's like, this can happen later. It's okay.
Yeah, you look at it and you're like, I don't even have the mental capacity to even pick it up and move it to a different spot in my house. You know what I mean? I just feel like this week for me has been, we usually record like what, Friday, Saturday. I feel like so much has been going on. I feel like I had so much going on, but also like my mental was just like on overload, on so many things going on with like work. Oh my God, am I going to have a job? But at the same time, I've been feeling like I hate this job anyway. Hopefully no one from my job ever hears that, but yeah, I've kind of been like a space of I'm ready for change.
Yeah, you know what? Like last year, whenever I started writing, it was because my car broke down, so I couldn't DoorDash anymore. So it was like I was like literally thrown into a new job, and I love my job now, but like maybe that could be like something for you, like a motivation where you're like kind of thrown into something new, where you like really don't have a choice. Like, you have to like, try something new, and maybe that can get you out of your funk if you're not happy at your job now.
Yeah, me and my boyfriend were talking about this because he's actually been at his job for like 6, 7 years, and it's so weird because we're both in a space right now. We're like so over where we work and we're ready for something new, but we both keep saying, okay, we're going to take initiative to like really do something different. But we're so busy with life and with work, and you get so comfortable where you are that you're not as motivated to really find something else. So we were both like, unless we're like literally fired, like it's not going to be like something that happens really quickly. Usually, like when you're forced to, it's like when you're really motivated. I
Mm.
mean, God forbid that nobody wants to get freaking fired or laid off, but I don't know, girl. That might be what I need. Have some time
Yeah.
to figure out what I want to do that's going to make me happier. This is really bringing me joy. I enjoy it. I just wish I had more like brain space to like maybe do 2 times a week or something. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at. And also, um, last but not least, I don't want to get too much into this, but I don't know if I've ever mentioned, I pretty much grew up like with a very unstable mom, but I never had my dad in my life. I had a gentleman who I love and I consider him my father, but my biological father, I've never had a relationship with. I've only heard stories. I maybe talked to him like one time when I was 15. It like didn't end well. And recently he's reached out to me and I don't know how I feel about it. It's making me feel weird. He's let me show you I can be a good father. I'm like, you're a stranger. That's really weird. It's just like a weird feeling, and I don't know if I'm gonna
Like, you don't even
like.
look at him as your dad anymore. He's just like a person that's, oh, you're my dad.
And there's just so much, I don't know, like anger and like just trauma of him even being absent. I feel,
Mm.
And like he's been very apologetic. I love you, always loved you. The story is, which I can get into another episode. The story is like my mom picked us up and left, and he couldn't find us for so many years or whatever. So he's like, I'm so angry for so long. Give me a chance. So I don't know. I've had really like chaotic, like annoying week. That's why I feel like we haven't talked that much either because I feel like I don't know where to put my brain space. Yeah, so that's my week. Nothing too exciting.
Nothing too crazy, right?
Yeah, so how's your week been?
So my week started off really bumpy. I got into a fight with my mom, and it was like a really ugly fight where she was like saying that she's gonna take away my kids and all of this stuff, and just whew, it was a lot. And we ended up making up, and we're okay. And she was just like saying that she wants me to do better with giving my kids their medicine on time, and just like little stuff that like I kind of forget sometimes. But I feel like that's not really grounds to be like take my kids away. It's a bit much. And then, but mostly my kids are, I feel like it's ended on a good note, besides me like literally shaking right now. Like literally, like I'm like so jittery. But it's ended on a good note. I spent my whole weekend with my boyfriend so far because my kids are with their dad, and they're gonna stay with their dad. I don't know how many days, but they're gonna be over there because it's Thanksgiving break. So they're gonna be over there for a minute, and I'm totally okay with it. Like, go spend your week with your dad, have fun. It was technically just for the weekend, but if they want to be with them for the week, if they are okay over there and they're happy over there, then I'm happy for them. And if they feel comfortable, that's all that matters. I want them to be happy, and so maybe more time with their dad is what they need.
How do you feel? Like, are you like comfortable with that now? I know we talked about like before. It was
Yeah.
like,
Well, yeah, like it's been like it's weird because when we first started doing visitation, it went from like when my daughter was a baby, it went from like me having to be there, and then it slowly over the past year, it went from my kids being at their grandparents' house and their dad coming to visit them at their grandparents' house, and now it's that they go to his house and spend the night over there. And so I'm as long like I said, as long as they're like happy. My daughter was I don't want to go over there. I want to go like with my cousin. So, I mean, I don't know if she's with the cousin right now or she's with her dad. I just want her to be happy and comfortable. It doesn't really matter where she is. And I trust them. I trust the family. I know that they'll never put them in a dangerous situation. They'll probably do things and I'll allow them to do things that I'm not comfortable with. But there's probably like some things like they let them drink soda and I'm like 100% against like even Sprite. I'm like, no, you can't drink soda. And then my daughter got like she had mouth surgery over the week, so she had to like, get crowns put in like for her cavities. It was so sad. She was so it was so bad whenever she woke up. She was not happy about it, because they had to put her
oh,
to sleep.
your daughter? How
Yeah,
old is she? 5?
she's 5. Yeah, they
Oh
had
my,
it was like 7 cavities, like where they had
oh
it covered. It was a lot,
my
and
God.
poor baby. And so they had to put her to sleep and do
Okay.
IV sedation. And then she got sent home Thursday because she said her ear was hurting and she wasn't eating. And we took her to the doctor on Friday and she has another ear infection. This is the third one since August since she started school.
Yeah, well, she wasn't in daycare or nothing, right?
No, she's in school, but she's not in daycare.
No, I mean before she went to
Mm-mm.
yeah, so that happened. I feel like that happens when kids first start school. Like I had to put him in daycare when he was 2 because I had to work like inside of an office. And literally, he probably had like 10 ear infections within 1 year to the point where he had to get like tubes in his ears.
Yeah, they're talking about getting tubes in her ears, and it's really sad. They said it's caused by her allergies. She has really bad allergies, and then it induces her asthma. So it's just like my poor baby. And then my son literally just got over an ear infection last week. So it's literally like back to back. My kids are getting sick, and it's, oh my God, it's a lot.
Yeah, this kid has been having a fever for literally 2 days now. It was like 103, 102, and like, girl, I said if it didn't go down by tonight, then I would have took his ass, but it went down. So thank God. He's just coughing a lot now, and it's like a lot lower than it was, but I think it's the weather changing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's so sad for baby. I don't like sick babies. That's so sad.
Yeah, it makes everything just harder, I feel like. And then it's inevitable because we're gonna get it eventually. There's no escaping it.
Oh yeah, for sure. With kids, especially when school starts and like all the germs passing around and kids getting sick, and I swear it's just like my kids have been sick back to back, and like the lady in the front office and the nurse know me by my voice. Like I don't even have to say who I am. They're like, "Oh, Aiden and Addie." I'm like,
I just love that their names sound so similar. I love that.
yeah. Whenever Aiden was born, that was gonna be his name if he had been a girl, and if Addie had been a boy, it would have been Ezra.
Oh my God, I was gonna name, if it was a girl, I was gonna name her Aria. Do you know that show? Ezra and Aria
Oh yeah,
from Pretty Little Liars? Yeah, I was gonna name her Aria if he was a girl. That's so funny.
that's funny. We have so much in common.
I know, right? Just like subconscious.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
funny. It's ironic. It's fine.
All right, well, since we've done our check-in, oh, but like, how are you mentally though? Like right now, are you doing better now?
Yeah, I was like crying. I have like group therapy, and so I was crying all week in group therapy, and all the people in there were like being so supportive and so kind, and just, "You're such a good mom. Don't let her get to you. Like she can't do anything anyways. Like it'd be so hard for her to take the kids away because of this and this. Don't let that little voice in your head scare you." And just being so supportive, and I was like crying. I'm like, "Oh, you're right." And right now, right this second, I don't know why I'm anxious. I think it's just the monster that I drank, which is not good.
That is a recipe for major anxiety and jitteriness. If I drink coffee, girl, I'm like losing it. I'm anxious all day. I'm anxious the entire day, sometimes even 2 days in a row.
Yeah, I had a coffee today too. I forgot. I forgot I had a coffee and the monster. Ooh, I
Coffee
am.
and a monster? Are you
Yeah,
trying to be awake for like 3 days?
I guess so. Shit. And then not only that, like we went to sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning last night and woke up at 7.
Oh, Lord. Okay, well, yeah. Seems like we've had a crazy week.
Yeah.
I will tell you from what you said about the difficulties of how do I put this into kind words? I'll tell you that as long as your kids are being fed, your kids are happy, your kids are healthy, you're taking them to the doctor, they have clean clothes, they're being bathed, they are being taken care of. So I wouldn't allow those type of things to really like get you anxious because those are not, I don't know, for just from that the hearing, it's not a reason that someone's going to take your kid away. I have people in my family who definitely neglected their children and have done horrible things to their children, and CPS was involved and they never took their kids. So,
Yeah. I mean, I had CPS involved with Aiden one time because he fell off the bed, and then they thought that he had like a legit head injury and like all this shit. And then they thought that he had like scabies and shit. Like, yeah, and I was because I confessed that I had co-sleeping and stuff. So they were like, "Oh, you have scabies." Like it was eczema. So
oh my God. You know what I just remembered that you said that? Another horrible thing that just happened, literally. When was it? Today is freaking
today's Sunday.
Sunday. This week, I think it was on Friday it must have been after we recorded the episode. I just thought about this because it's such a random thing, but another thing that happened, I swear to God, this week has been so hectic for me. My son went to the park with my boyfriend and his son. He ran into a pole and he got this bump. It literally was the size of a golf. And I had to rush into the ER because I've never seen something like this in my life. It was protruding out of his head. And like it went down the next day, but then he started to have like black under his eyes, which no, it like black eyes. And like the hospital said like it was normal, but girl, I wasn't even there and it happened. So
Yeah, I know that's a shitty feeling because like you want to be there and you wish you had been there to prevent it, and there's nothing you really could have done. It's not wrong of you to have trusted your boyfriend. It wasn't even his fault either. Like your kid just.
girl, I know, but my anxiety was like, I'm never letting him. Girl, I probably never let him go anywhere with him alone. It has nothing to do with my boyfriend. It just has everything to do with my trauma. So I was like, the one time I was like, okay, he's off work, I'm working, so take the kids. It's right, like literally right next to our neighborhood. Go ahead. They walked there, girl. And he called me. I was like, you're joking, right? And I get in the car and I drive over there so fast, and I see this little boy with his head. Oh my God. I was like physically about to have a panic attack. The only thing that kept me freaking calm was like, you're not the hurt one in the situation. I literally had to
Yeah,
like,
calm down. Yeah.
he wasn't even crying. I know he was crying when it happened, but by the time I got there to pick him up, he wasn't even crying, but I was crying. I was like, I can't believe this is so traumatic for me. Like, it was just, yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I forgot. I don't know how I forgot about that. All the other millions of things that have been going on.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, when you have that much stuff going on, it's like where, like I said, like where do you even start to unpack this? It's just like a lot to even think about. And sometimes I get like completely shut down because I'm like, what the like it's so much. So I understand, but that's a lot. And I feel like sometimes we get more hurt than our kids. Like our kids could care less sometimes. Like where we are like, oh my god, I broke you, and they're like,
It hurts. Like, it physically hurts me to see him hurt. And sometimes he'll be like, I'm fine. No, you're not fine. Come over here. Let me just examine you. And he's like looking at me like, I'm like, it's from my trauma. I'm sorry. That's a perfect segue.
yeah, it is.
Speaking of, so I know we were kind of, that's our new thing, our new segment called our weekly check-in. And we're going to try to do that every time we do a podcast episode because we're legit just wanting to catch up. And I don't know, I like the connection. So what we actually are wanting to talk about today is how our childhood may have affected our mental health now and how childhood trauma affects our parenting, like how it kind of comes up and how it affects our parenting and how it manifests into our parenting. That is the word I'm looking for. I could not. Okay, so y'all know I have to come with some facts. So I found an article on the Institute of Advanced Psychiatry. And the first thing I'm going to read to you is basically how they define trauma. So one of the first things to understand about childhood trauma is that there's no set cause and effect relationship. There are so many different types of trauma, and each person's reaction to the event depends on a host of factors, such as whether you were able to process the event with the right support systems.
I just want to say that like me and you have this wildly different childhoods, and like we are both so wildly affected by our trauma. So it just made me think of that. Life is different, and it will affect them differently. Like me and someone else could be the same and have the same spoiled lifestyle, and that kid could end up fine, and I'm over here fucked up.
Yeah, literally when you said that, like what my mind went to. So basically what that paragraph is saying to you is like, not every traumatic situation is going to look the same. And if something may not be as severe to you as it is to somebody else. So basically, like, I went without like food sometimes, and like I had a very abusive mother, and you, for example, had bullying at school, and you had things that went on with boys. But because you didn't have the support system from your parents, that was very traumatic for you. Now, versus if you had parents that supported you, protected you in the way you needed, it wouldn't have been traumatic. You know what I mean? But my trauma is probably just as equally as traumatizing to you, even though they were like two different, way totally different situations. So yeah, definitely. I don't know why that popped in my mind, like those two scenarios. And I might not be like kind of explaining your scenario in the exact way, but I just remember like you talking about like situations with the guys and how you felt like you felt in your heart like your dad didn't protect you always. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what I also think about? Have you ever heard that phrase like about the paper plate and the ceramic plate or whatever? Like everyone deals with shit like differently. I have a paper plate, and so I can only handle what that paper plate can do for me versus someone else's ceramic plate. Like we could be doing the same thing, and but my paper plate is gonna break, and their ceramic plate is gonna be perfectly fine.
Yeah, I've never heard that, but I love that. That was like, yeah, perfectly explained. So, to give you a better idea about what constitutes trauma, here are some of the more common events. Not all of them, but some common ones: childhood sexual or physical abuse, witnessing domestic violence, bullying, community or school violence, natural disasters, loss of a loved one, neglect, in all forms of neglect, mental, physical, any type of neglect, serious illness or accident. It's important to note that these are just common examples of trauma, and your experiences may not reflect any of those events, but it was still traumatic for you. All right, so since we are going to kind of focus on childhood trauma, I'm going to read off some of the signs of childhood trauma that they listed: post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Some of the signs of that is reliving the event, flashbacks or nightmares, avoidance, anxiety, depression, anger, problems with trust, self-destructive or risky behaviors, and withdrawal.
So I've never had like the flashbacks and stuff like that, but like definitely the anxiety, depression, the problems with trust. Like I have a really big problem trusting people and letting people in because I'm like, are you safe? Are you a safe person that I can trust and that isn't gonna snap on me? Because like I've had people snap on me in my life where it's like 1 minute I can trust you and the next minute I don't know what you're gonna say. So I have a really hard time letting people in because I'm like, are you gonna be okay if I tell you this, or are you gonna flip out on me? So, and that's a childhood thing.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to a lot of those. Definitely reliving the events. I find myself, if I ever find myself in even similar situations, even the slightest bit similar, I react in really big ways. Definitely avoidant, anxiety, depression, anger. Really, I don't trust anyone. So I definitely relate to that. Another warning flag of childhood trauma that carries over into adulthood are problems forming attachment and relationships. For example, if your childhood trauma was caused by a loved one or a caregiver, you may learn to mistrust adults. This mistrust can carry over into your adulthood and affect your ability to form relationships with others. Or perhaps you consistently form unhealthy relationships with bad people, since that is what you know from your childhood. Basically, a victim of child abuse may marry an abusive spouse, for example. Whatever the case, if you struggle forming healthy relationships with your peers, this may be a sign of unresolved childhood trauma. So I can definitely relate to this. I have very emotionally and physically absent mother, a very unstable mother. So I kind of clung to people that resembled like emotionally unavailable, whether it was friendships or family members. Like they would do something, I'd be like, okay, I'm done with them. And then I'd go right back to them just because that's pretty much like how I viewed love. This is normal for family to treat me like this and then me to forgive them and go back to them. So,
Yeah, I think my mom also had the same problem that I had. I don't know in what way her childhood was. I know about her childhood, and I know that her siblings weren't the best to her. but she like raves about her mom. So I don't think her mom was ever like abusive in that way. She was very protective over my mom, is what I know. Like she wouldn't let my mom have friends and stuff. So now, like my mom's friends that she did have, I remember watching them, like watching her relationships and watching her friendships, and they were all very abusive and like using her in like very one-sided friendships where the people were like not friends to her the way that she was friends to them. And so like I was watching that, and then also my own thing that was happening to me was like I was being bullied at school. I had a lot of friends that were the same way, where it's a one-sided friendship where I was friends more with them than they were with me. And I've told you about this, but and then my relationships are also like very like abusive and like emotionally abusive mostly, because that's where I was never like physically abused, but like just the yelling and snapping and like the mistrust and stuff is there, where when I date it's like I'm attached to like very toxic people, so I can definitely see that.
Yeah, 100%. I can definitely. Sometimes I read things and I'm like, I don't know. I hate the fact that I can relate to it so much. You know what I mean? I just feel like sometimes I like wish I could read something about mental health and be like, I can't relate at all. I'm normal.
I wish I knew someone that would like that could do that. I don't know anyone in my life that's neurotypical, that's like a normal person. Like everyone around me is like very has issues and stuff, which everyone has issues, but I know that there's people out there that have no issues, which is like, I would love to know what that is.
I feel like some people are better at hiding it than others. I don't feel like one person is just completely fine. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. That's just my opinion. And I also feel like it'd be hard for me to be close with somebody no, sorry. I just feel like I wouldn't be able to be. I'd be so subconscious. I don't know. Would find it very hard to be friends with someone who's, I guess, neurotypical because I'd be like, they're to be judging the out of me.
Yeah, like with their ceramic plate, that's what I'm thinking about. And I told my mom this also. You have your ceramic plate and you can handle more than my little paper towel that I'm dealing with. Like, I can't handle the things that you can handle. Like I freak the fuck out even over phone calls.
Okay. So, another side effect of childhood trauma may be problems regulating your emotions. There are many ways in which this problem can manifest itself, including uncontrollable anger, anxiety, depression, and inability to express your emotions and withdrawal. Can you relate to any of that?
So whenever I feel any type of way, usually I pull back my feelings because I can't even handle them. I don't even know how to like express them. So I just kind of pull the reins back, and I kind of go quiet and I'm just like daydreaming. Like he's asked me like 5 times today where I'm like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't even know. I don't even know where to begin on what's wrong. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm just feeling feelings and I don't know how to stop it. And I don't know why I'm feeling these feelings. So yeah, but
It's almost like you can't even explain what they are.
I
Like just saying like anger or sadness is those one words don't really even express them. It's like
yeah,
almost all of them together.
yeah.
It's very overwhelming.
Yeah, oh yeah, like
Yeah.
usually when I explain my feelings, it's usually just overwhelming is my word. It's just I feel like I'm drowning in feelings and I don't know how to express to it like anyone. So
Yeah.
I definitely feel that it's a bad feeling to just not be able to talk about it because you don't know how. You don't know how to unpack that. I need to talk to my therapist about like how to unpack emotions.
Well, you know what the problem is? Regulating your emotions is something that you're supposed to learn as a child. And when you don't learn it, then you grow up and you think that's normal not to really understand your emotions and handle your emotions. It's really hard to change.
Mhm,
Just like it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. You know what I mean?
mhm.
That is kind of like how you're wired. So yeah, I can relate.
That's a good one. Teach a dog old tricks. Old dog new
New
tricks.
tricks, yeah, 100%. Another thing that your childhood trauma can affect is your physical health. For example, studies show that kids who are subjected to abuse were more at risk for serious health issues, including diabetes, coronary artery disease, asthma, strokes, and trigger warning. Suicide attempts are also shown to be considerably higher among adults who experience childhood trauma, which I definitely know that for 100% sure. So, does any of that ring to you?
Yeah, like I don't have like attempts and like at all. There was this one time 2 years ago when I was like in the car driving home and like, I could feel like my arms, like I was driving my arms straight out and like I really wanted to drive my car off the freaking road. And I like, and it was like, it hurt, like it scared me so bad. Like in my head, I was like terrified. And the fact it was like kind of like an intrusive thought where like you have a knife in your hand and you're like, oh, I could cut off my finger right now. But like that, but like with suicide, I was like, oh my God, I could totally do this right now. And it's scary. And like something in my head is telling me to do it. And I was just like really upset because I didn't make the money I needed to make that day because I was a waitress. And I was like, I was a waitress. And so I could like make money, like a certain amount of money in each shift. And I didn't make my goal. So I was like really upset because I couldn't pay my bills. And I was like stressing the fuck out. Once I really wanted to die.
And I think that even the thoughts can be as scary as the attempts because once you have one thought, I feel like that's really all it takes. Do you know what I mean? Personally, for me, I am so afraid of death. It's like almost unhealthy. And I went like a period of time where I would like cry every night, like thinking about the time that I will die one day and that all of my loved ones, my children, child, my boyfriend, my family, one day like we're just gonna be dead. And I'd literally sit there and cry. Like I would put him to bed. And if I would even have a second of for a second, like to let my thoughts wander, that's where it would go. But I can remember in my younger adulthood, like before I had my child, like going through such horrible things or thinking about the things that I went through as a kid and being like, bruh, I would be so much better off dead right now. I don't know if death would be easier than what I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah, it's like we didn't ask for this life. Like you gave birth to us and then you traumatized us and now we're just living life with all this trauma. And then not only did you traumatize us, but then you don't even understand how you were traumatized. So it's such a horrible feeling.
I think the worst part about it as an adult now is like having my adult grown parent like deny doing most of the things that she did and like never acknowledging them, never acknowledging my pain, never acknowledging like that she did anything ever wrong. Like and I know this is a part of her mental illness, but like she sees herself as like, I did the best that I could. I loved you so much. I was a great mother to you. And while that can be true in one sentence, it can also be true at the same time as like, maybe that was the best that you could do. But if you look at it
I
from a
needed
normal,
better.
if you look at exactly, I needed better. And if you look at it from a normal perspective, your good enough or your best wasn't even the minimum of what a child needs.
Like my mom, she like so I'll validate my mom usually and I'll validate okay, like you used to lose your shit. And I would validate her. I'd be like, hey, you had a reason to lose your, like, I wasn't doing good in school. I wasn't doing my homework. I wasn't cleaning my room. I was doing like bad things. Like, I get why she was upset. And like, I can understand that. But it's the reaction and how she responded to being upset that like really got to me. Cause sometimes she'd be like, oh, like, we can work on this. And then there'd be times when it would like explode. And I'm like, I said, like, I can understand her why she was upset. It's just I never knew how bad the reaction was gonna be. If it was gonna be like, oh, I understand, let's work on this, or a screaming, yelling match where we're like screaming and yelling at each other. And even now in my adulthood, there's times whenever and like she was explaining that the straw that broke the camel's back, like she can only handle so much and then she snaps. And I get that, but also like just I'd much rather her confront me in the moment when she's upset each time versus holding it in and then letting it all out, even as an adult now, whenever we fight and stuff.
You just said something that do you find yourself being a little bit of a people pleaser?
Oh, 100%.
So you said that you acknowledge your mom, and I'm not speaking on the specifics because obviously I didn't live in your mom's shoes and I didn't live in your shoes. But to me, it sounds like you're saying that you acknowledge your mom had reasons. But at the end of the day, we are parents now, right? We're adults now. We snap on our kids. We are very aware of that and we know it's wrong. At the end of the day, your kid not doing their homework and not cleaning when that you ask them to, that still doesn't warrant your parents screaming at you and like literally freaking out. You know what I mean? Like,
Usually, like, I give my kids warnings in the moment, like, hey, like, I'm getting upset. I need you to really pick this up. This isn't a joke. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you
mm-hmm.
to get dressed. Or I'm telling you to pick up your mess. Or and I give them warnings, like active warnings in the moment, because I don't want them to be all like, "Oh, you snapped at me." Like, no, I give you warning. And then usually it never gets to the point where like I scream at them, but sometimes it does get to that point. And usually
But
like,
you regret it, right? After
oh,
the fact,
1,000,
right?
oh,
Because it's not what they're doing, it still doesn't deserve them to be yelled at. And I know that because literally they're fucking like little ass kids. They didn't flush a toilet. They didn't stop eating on the floor. Like, just like they're literally children and they're literally like the more you scream, the more you like you're ingraining in them that it's not okay for them to make mistakes, that because they don't listen to someone they deserve to be belittled and yelled at and like emotionally and verbally abused because I'm not doing what this person says, and I'm very guilty of that, and I know that but I'll tell you right now, like that instant guilt, that instant like that was not even worth, you know what I mean, like it's not even worth that, like he's a kid.
me and Aiden get into these like fights sometimes where like, it just like then it's like over something so stupid like him not getting dressed or like him not wanting to take a bath or whatever. And like we get into these like screaming matches and then but like literally like we'll talk it out like 5 minutes later. If you had just listened to me the first time or even just used your words because he has a hard time using his words and I understand that's my fault for him not being able to use his words and express his emotions. So like he has trouble. Like I have to tell him, "Hey, use your words," and that way we can communicate better. Because if I don't understand what's going on in your head, I'm just thinking other stuff, and I'm getting mad about the things that I'm thinking.
You're assuming like he's like, I'm not gonna listen to her. Like I'm gonna make her mad for like on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm assuming stuff that you just don't want to. Versus, hey, I can't because of this and this. And usually, like after we talk about it, like we're just better about it. I don't know.
Yeah, it feels better to be able to talk things through and treat them like a human being and not treat them like they're like little freaking pets or like little like slaves that we need to just boss around all day. The more he talks and the more like emotionally aware he is, I'm like realizing like I need to really like examine like how I'm talking to him and like I need to let him say how he feels. Like I'm naturally a very defensive person. So if he's talking back to me and he's like kind of getting like an attitude or he's like snapping at me because maybe I'm like telling him how to do something. He's I already know how to do this. Like today we were playing a game because he was sick, so he had to stay inside today. We were playing a game and I like kept like that motherly, oh, you have to do it this way. He looks at me, he's like, I know, mama. Don't tell me, mama. And I could not help myself. Like I would forget he said that, and then I would remind him of something else we were doing in part of the game. And he actually got like very mad with me, and he actually raised his voice a little bit. And I was like I have to listen to my kid. it's not okay for him to yell at me. I'm not saying that. Don't let your kids disrespect you. But like, if you just listen, your kids are their own people and they have their own personalities and they deserve the same type of respect you want them to give to you. You
Yeah,
have to give to them. At the end of the
1000%.
day, they're not going to be confident. They're not going to have high self-esteem. I just like repeated myself, high self-esteem if you don't like give that to them as kids. You know what I mean?
I try to catch my son because he'll snap too. Like he's very impulsive. Like whenever he tells his sister or me like, hey, I don't like something or whatever, or stop doing this, it always instantly yelling. He never asks like, hey, stop. It's always immediate yelling. And I always have to tell him like, hey, calm down. That doesn't warrant you yelling. Like you can say, hey, can you please stop? Or hey, mom, I already know this. But I have no warnings with him whenever he snaps. It's instant with him. And so that really upsets me when, especially when he does it to his sister. I'm like, she didn't even do anything. And but whenever she is being annoying, I'll be like, hey, like you need to leave your brother alone because that's he's already told you to stop and you need to leave him alone. And she's
Yeah,
very stubborn.
my son he is 5, but he has the temper and the attitude of a 15-year-old little boy. And I get so frustrated. Like, he yells at my boyfriend's son over everything. Like, he likes to control everything. If we're in the car and there's a song on and if his stepbrother is singing too loud, he's like, stop, I can't hear the music, or like, being too loud. He is very like controlling. He's very like, this kid, he has such a bad temper. And I get so frustrated with it. And I'm like, but where did he get that from? Like, where did he
Mhm.
learn that? And let me tell you right now, if you guys have small kids, don't matter if they're 1 years old, 2 years old. I really thought like I could be a certain way in front of him as a baby. He ain't gonna learn that. That's how I am. I'm very
Mhm.
controlling. I'm very like I like
Yeah.
things a certain way, and it's not good. But we have to look at the things in our kids and we have to realize where they get that shit from. Where did they learn that from?
So like the 1 or 2 years old, like I was with my ex whenever my kid was a baby. So like 1, 2. I think we broke up when he was 2. So he'll get like aggressive, like throwing things and like wanting to punch walls. He's never punched a wall before, but I can tell that he really wants to. And slamming doors, and that's just like his dad, like just what I remember with his dad. And so it's like I can't believe he remembers that kind of stuff, and he was a baby. Because I don't do that. I don't be slamming doors and throwing shit, and so like where the fuck did he get that from? And he'll
Yeah.
say stuff that like I've said, and I'm like, oh fuck, like I said
Mhm.
something. And so I really
Yeah.
gotta watch what I say about around them because they learn everything.
Yeah. And I was just was gonna say is like I feel like we need to look at the things that our children do. We know that it's not right for them to do. We need to like first acknowledge like where did they get that shit from? And if they did learn it from us, we're probably still actively doing it unknowingly.
Mm.
So like that first is they're gonna learn better if we like physically teach them like that we're trying to change those bad habits in ourselves, because I tell him all the time, stop doing this and stop doing that, but I'm still doing it myself, so he's not gonna stop doing it. You know what I mean? Just little things. So yeah,
One
I don't
thousand
know.
percent.
So real quick, I wanted us to we talked a little bit about like the different things we related to when I was going through what childhood trauma is and what that looked like. So I wanted to ask you, is there anything specifically that was traumatic in your childhood that you feel like it manifested into your struggles with your mental health? Or is there anything specific or anything in general you want to talk about as far as that goes?
So like I said, like my mom was very like snappy. So like I never, like I said, like to me I feel like she had a reason, and I know that you were saying like that's very people pleasing, and it is. So like to me I feel like she had a reason, but I wish she would have just talked to me about the things that were happening as they were happening instead of letting it build up into her snapping because that's the last straw. So I think that, I mean, like, affected my trust, like, not really wanting to trust people and chasing, and then her relationships with men and her friends made me like chase those friendships because it's all I saw. Like, she had a friend of me and I had a friend of me, and so that's what I think about it. And then with my dad, he used to let me like go out with guys and go to their houses and do do stuff, and like he knew I was doing stuff. There's no way he didn't know. It was pretty obvious. And I was a teenager. I was like 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. And so and then he knew I was dating a 17-year-old and I was 14 years old. So like, you remember him. And so like,
Yeah.
why was I dating a fucking 17? Like, why would you let that happen? And he was like all buddy with this guy and not even like being all like, hey, if you hurt my daughter. I never really felt protected. Um, mm,
I just want to say I have a boy and I would be more protective over my son than he was over you and you were a girl. Let me tell you, I don't care if he's a boy or not.
yeah, and like he was still buddy with my ex, like my kid's dad, and like I felt like everyone that was really shitty to me, he loved, and everyone that was good to me and like a good friend or like anyone like that, he was like he didn't like them. And I'm like, what the fudge? Like, why are you so backwards? And then he wouldn't protect me against my cousins and my uncles that were bullying me and saying really mean things to me and behind my back and stuff. And he would just let it happen. And he never had my back. And so I feel like I have daddy issues over that. Like, where again, I kind of don't know what to go after. I don't know. Like, I don't feel safe with anyone. I kind of feel like if I'm not, I'm gonna cry. Like, I'm not worth anything. If my dad doesn't think I'm worth anything, then who is gonna think I'm worth anything?
You're gonna make me cry. And I was just gonna say that I was just gonna say like that situation with your dad. I know 100% that that had to really take a hit on your self-esteem, and you are definitely worth being protected. You definitely deserve someone who loves you and is gonna protect you, and not just a sexual relationship, friendships that value you because you deserve that. You do. Regardless if your father could see what kind of pain he was putting you in or not, it could have been subconsciously, like maybe he was just doing what he thought.
He just wanted to be my friend, and like he wanted to, I don't know what he wanted. He guess he wanted to be the fun parent, or he just wanted, he didn't want any like argument with me, because like anytime I would like bitch at him or like, be like, hey, you hurt me, he would go pss, 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 pss. Like, just like he wouldn't listen to me, or he would like just like not, he wouldn't say anything, he would just nod. And so like whenever people do that to me, I'm so triggered. They're just nodding at me. Don't
You
do
feel
that.
like you're just being ignored. Yeah.
You're just ignoring me. So,
I'm so sorry. That really, that just like
and I know like from the outside in, it looked like he was like spoiling me.
the best dad, but you needed protection.
Yeah, he was spoiling me like money wise, financially, but like emotionally, I was very like, and even now, like I'll tell him I love him, and he's like very like he won't say I love you back, or if I hug him, he's very stiff. So it's really weird.
I think that you shouldn't take that having anything to do with you. I think that has a lot to do with his mental health and the way he was parented.
Yeah.
I think that he didn't get that n- emotional connection maybe from his parents, and maybe he wasn't listened to and he thought that, that shit was normal. You know what I mean? But as an adult, you I know it's so hard to, like I said, teach an old dog new tricks and rewire yourself, but I'm sorry, that makes me so sad. Like, I had a horrible childhood, but like when I hear stuff like that, like sometimes I feel like it maybe it would be harder to have a father or a mother who wasn't a good parent versus just not having one at all. You know what I mean? Because like your mind can be left to wonder who they are. Like for me, that's how it was for me with my dad. Like I feel like I had daddy issues in a different way because I never knew who he was. But like you had your dad, and there were just things that I don't think he was even probably aware of. But you deserve to be respected and you are worth something. So don't ever think that.
The thing is, like, I didn't even realize I had daddy issues until a year ago when I was like, wait a minute, wait a damn minute, this happened. And I was like crying about it in my daughter's bed because she was in my bed, and I went into her room to cry my eyes out. And I was like bawling my eyes out and just crying about it. I'm like, I'm not worth anything. And it was really sad. Yeah.
But you are. That is that damn mental illness telling you you're not.
Yeah. It's really sad. Okay. So let's
I don't
switch
even
over to
know
you.
how to move on to off from that.
Let's talk about
I would
you.
just give you a hug.
Virtual hug.
Just
Yeah.
give you a virtual hug.
Switch to you. Let's talk about your trauma now. How did
So
that
how
affect
long do
your
we have? Do we have about 5 years to talk?
we
I was
we have
telling
about 8 minutes on this Zoom call right now, so
Christian asked me, "What's your topic for this week? What are you guys going to be talking about?" I said childhood trauma. He goes, I said, "Yeah, we're probably going to do 25 parts of this of this topic, 25 episodes of it to cover all of my childhood trauma." I don't know. I think something that really really was ingrained to me is in how, what's the word I'm looking for? So how occupied my mom was and how uninterested she was in, like, I felt like me and my sister didn't bring her happiness. She's always searching for something else, and I felt like we were never good enough for her. I always felt like there was always a man that came before us, or a friend that came before us, or a family member. Like, I felt like we were never enough for her. So that really spawned in me like really low self-esteem and almost like a hatred for myself almost. And then the hatred turned on her because then I got older and I started to realize how she let people treat her. It almost made me like disgusted with her. Like, how could you,
you're letting all these people treat you like shit, and like
like, you treat us like shit and then you turn around and let the people that you're like seeking approval from and you're seeking attention from, they treat you like shit and you just like allow it. And then that turned into us getting treated like shit. And we were just like never protected almost, and never like, we were never important, but neither was she. And she never stood up for herself. And so I don't know, it was just so much of like feeling abandoned, but also being angry because I'm like, why are you allowing people to treat you this way? Girl, there's so much trauma, so much trauma, but I feel like most of it is feeling unsafe and feeling unloved. And it really just manifested into a lot of anxiety. And because of how she was, we got put into a lot of bad situations.
I remember, like, I know I didn't see everything. I know that I got like a very short glimpse of what you went through, like a very short, because even though we spent a lot of time together, I hardly ever went to your house with you. Like, we just kind of dropped you off, and that was it. I think I only went in there and met your mom maybe one time, but she seemed always like very, from what you told me and what I saw, but she seemed very disinterested. Like, just, yeah, I have a kid, I need to feed you, but that's it. Like, I don't need to go. Who cares about your school and everything else? Just kind of, I have to take care of you because you're there, which is really sad.
Yeah, I feel like you like got that on the head. Yeah, put the whatever you want to call it, the nail on the, yeah, it was, she never asked who I was going with. She never needed to talk to the parents. She never needed to make sure I was going to a safe place. She, I could just disappear for like a week or two with whatever friend. Like, you weren't the only friend that I would go off with, you know what I mean? I would have friends, and my friends would be like, "Oh, you want to spend the night?" Sure. And I'd tell my mom, and she'd be like, "Okay, bye." And I would go. She wouldn't call to check in. And then I told you about the year that she disappeared, and it just left like just a deep wound. Like, damn, like you really don't give a shit about us that much that you could just disappear for a fucking year without a phone call, without nothing. And she didn't care who she was leaving me with or Bethany with. Like, we got left with a very evil, like, just mean person who was supposed to be our aunt. And we went through so much. It's almost like I'm like so numb to it. I feel like when I talk about it, I'm numb to it. But like when it manifests in like my parenting is when it hurts me the most because it's like I almost don't have control over it when it comes up in my parenting. Because like the effects it has on me, I kind of ignore. You know what I mean? Because who cares about my feelings? Who cares that, you know what I mean? That's like my natural reactions, like to ignore my needs.
Like I lived it, and it is what it is, and
Yeah, exactly. And but when it manifests in like my parenting and like how I deal with dilemmas in parenting, it just we're gonna get into that next. But as far as how it affects my mental health, I have always gravitated to people who don't give a shit about me and that daddy issues, daddy wasn't there. I was always told he just didn't care about us. He didn't try to find us. And then the other side is, well, she took you away. So it's, well, I'm 26 now.
he could have looked for me like 8 years ago at least.
Yeah, girl, I didn't even tell you when I spoke to him at 15 years old what he said to me after talking to him for a few days. And that's how I know mental health does also run in your genetics. Some things are just unescapable. I will tell you one thing that stuck with me my entire life, and it was my mom would she would tell me because I was always the compared to my sister, I was a little mean. I had a bigger attitude, I had a bigger personality. I was a lot more angrier than she was, and she would say, "You're evil, just like your father. You're mean, just like your father." And my father was a very physically abusive to her, which has been confirmed with other family members. And she would say that to me, and I don't know why it always just made me feel so icky because I knew inside I had a lot of anger and it would come out in very unhealthy ways. And when I spoke to him at 15 years old, we spoke for a few days. The only thing that he wanted to talk about was how much he hated my mom, how much of a whore she was. And then I was 15, and a friend of mine, he was a guy. Back in the day, when you were teenagers, a guy friend would tag you and 40 other people. He saw me tagged in a photo. I wasn't even in the photo. It was just like a guy, and he wrote something, and he's like, "You're a whore, just like your mom," off of me being tagged in a photo of a fucking guy who tagged like 40 other people.
What the fuck?
Girl, let me tell you, and I feel like that anger he has inside of him, I feel like that shit got passed down to me, and I never even fucking grew up with that man. So, shit is real. Shit is so real.
Yeah, I think my mom has some shit. I can't diagnose her, obviously, but my dad definitely has anxiety, like 1000%. I have anxiety, and like I always tell, like me and him talk about this all the time. You need medication, and he's like, well, what if something happens? Because I'm not as aware. Not how that works. That's not how that works at all.
Okay, so we were going to talk about next how our childhood traumas affects our parenting, but I
Mm.
feel like maybe we should save that for a part 2 for next week, just because we've been talking for a while.
I know.
That's like a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
So this week's episode, we kind of covered like childhood trauma and how that can affect your mental health and does affect your mental health in a major way, like major way.
Big major way.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to add to that? And we'll do a part 2.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like my teacher is listening in the back. And he's, I hate this episode because it hits home. And I'm like, yeah, it does. Like, I feel like I'm being like put back in time and thinking about stuff that I haven't thought about in so long. And I'm like, holy shit, I have issues because of this. And I'm like, oh my God. I thought it was issues because of like more adult stuff that happened. It's like a lot of the root of the problem because of my childhood. And I wouldn't have gone through trauma in my adulthood by chasing toxic people and having toxic relationships. I wouldn't have even done that and had that trauma if it not been for my childhood trauma. So, and back to like again, like looking from the outside in, my childhood doesn't look bad. Like I had very loving parents, and like you wouldn't have been able to tell from the outside in. Like they looked like I was spoiled, like I was happy, and everything. But then like when you live it on my side, like it's just different.
Exactly. And that's why I want to put emphasis on the first thing that I kind of brought up when we brought this topic up is everyone's trauma is different and it can be equally as hard, even though it's different. And most of the time, the bad decisions that we make and the things that we struggle with,
Mm,
especially mentally, there's always what's the word I'm looking for? Origin, or there's always like that
agree.
first thing that bred that in you. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So, yeah, this is almost like when you said that he said that he doesn't like this episode because it like hits home and like it makes you
Mm,
emotional. I feel like I get that feeling when I do therapy because I feel
mm,
like on here with you, I am vulnerable, but I feel like I'm never as vulnerable as when I'm doing therapy
mm,
to the point where I'm like crying in a way that I never cry. And I feel so broken. I almost feel worse after I do therapy than when I did therapy because it's like opening up wounds and like digging out these wounds that I like probably put like mad chairs and desks in front of so you could never like open the door.
yeah, like it takes me like a whole hour out or two like after therapy for me to calm down because I'm
Like
like
recovering from it.
yeah, recovering from the therapy, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know like how I felt about that stuff, and they made me open up and made me like really dig through. Like if it's like I don't know how to describe it. There's like foam pits or whatever, like at the jumping places, like they yeah they make you like really dig through all of that and get to the bottom of it, and it's just oh my God, I wasn't trying to about that, and now I'm like traumatized all over again.
It's like reliving it, but I'll be honest, like once I'm able to calm down and stop crying, I'm like, I do feel a little lighter. Like I've never been able to talk about this with anybody and like without somebody being like defensive, like I never did that. Or someone who's, well, like in my life, when I talk about things that happened in my childhood, I get two scenarios. Like, because usually I've always talked about them with either my mom, who caused the trauma, or other family members who are related to my mom. So I either get defensive for my mom or I get, oh, she struggles, like excuses for her. Not, I'm so sorry you dealt with that. Or, you know what I mean? Like empathy. I always get like either excuses or she starts an argument with me for trying to tell her how I feel. So it's like really refreshing to be able to speak in my truth and not be like almost having to put a guard up because I'm like worried about what's going to come like back at me after just expressing something that happened to me and how it made me feel. So this is very therapeutic.
Oh yeah, 100%. Just like therapy, but also I like talking to you about it because you relate to it. You're like, oh my God, me too. But holy shit, like I relate or something instead of someone being like you said, like excuses, where like we're validating each other. That was wrong. You're not unworthy, or you're not this. Like you deserve better than that, and it's kind of like that validation that I feel like we both need.
Yeah, I'm like so empathetic. Like I can't watch the news. I can't really be like actively scrolling through Facebook. I have to, over the years, I've become so sensitive and it's so strange for me. I don't know if you've ever like noticed this, but like, I feel like when I was younger, I put up such a big wall and such a guard because of all the multiple like traumatic things that would keep happening to me. So like I just put up this like angry guard. and I didn't feel anything. And then as I got older and I was able to move out and get on my own, like those walls start to come down a little bit, and I'm like, I feel like I cry over everything. Like I see someone crying, I'm crying. If I see something bad happen to someone on the news or on Facebook, I'm thinking about it the entire day, and it literally gets me depressed and gets me sad. So like when I saw you like crying, I like felt your pain. I saw your pain, even though I didn't live that specific pain. I know what pain like you're feeling.
There was this girl in group one time, and she was like talking about her situation, and I could hear her pain and everything, and I was like, oh my god, like I legit started crying for her, and I was like, I'm so sorry that you're going through this, and that's such a shitty situation. And I just want you to know that I'm here and I support you and I'm feeling your feelings and I get it. I hope that takes off like a little bit of pain for you. She like actually it really does know help knowing that you support me and you know what I'm talking about and stuff like that. I'm like not coming at her with like advice or like unsolicited advice and stuff like that. 'Cause sometimes people don't want to hear unsolicited advice. Can I just vent to you? Can I just talk to you?
That is a problem of mine. I feel like, since I'm sorry to cut you off, but I feel like when someone's telling me about something that's going wrong in their life, I feel so bad. I'm like, maybe if I offer them advice to fix the situation, it'll get better for them. But then I realize, like, sometimes I'm like, just listen, don't try to solve their problem. You know what I mean? So if I do that, just say, if you ever want to vent to me, tell me up front. Do you need advice or you just want to vent? Because I have a need to help people, even though I can't help myself sometimes.
No, sometimes I'm the same way, like, people are, like, just, like, going back to, like, them venting, and I'm like, "Okay, like, I get it, you just wanna vent and talk about it, you don't want solutions." Sometimes, like, yeah, you can't even hear the solutions, and sometimes the solutions aren't the solution that you want. A lot of the time, like, I'm in therapy and, like, my therapist will give me a solution that makes sense, that's, like, logical, like, I know that's the right decision, but, like, when I just talk to you, like and not get advice that is right. You're like, "You're right." But, like, right now, I really wanna freak the fuck out.
Yeah, I just want to say all this crazy shit that I need to say, and I don't need anything else from you. Lord, I do that with my cousin a lot. I can tell sometimes she's like, if you don't stop trying to give me advice, I'm like, I know. I just want to fix everyone's problem. But meanwhile, I don't even know how to fix my own problem. Sometimes, like, I don't even know what I'm upset about, but I'm upset about something and I don't know what to do about it.
It's a lot.
Okay, you guys, so we're gonna go ahead and do a part two because me and Rhiannon just having such a great time chatting it up. We've been talking for a long time. So thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Stay tuned for next episode. Thank you for so much for listening. I'm Kat. This is my co-host.
I'm Rhiannon, and also don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at the Mental Moms Podcast. And, yeah, follow us. We have lots of fun stuff.
Follow us, please, and thank you.
Alright. Bye, y'all.